Hello, everybody. First time back since we did the last episode, so we wanted to try to get back and start doing some more rating tips, guide videos, and hopefully it helps other people as we get going. This is most of these initial videos are meant for people more just, trying to get their foot more into rating, but there are some little tips here that can help. So today we're going to be going over in episode 2 of our rating tips and guides, the macros, movements, and key bindings. I'll spend more time a little bit more focused on macros because I think that can help even more experienced players and even some players that do very well in rating. They can use macros to do even more things, and properly utilizing these macros can really help increase your overall gameplay. So the first thing, basically getting started, wanted to show everybody. I just have my pally here where I have a few different types of macros that I use, and the first one is you can use at cursor macros. So if you have any abilities where you have to click on and target that reticle somewhere, well, instead of you having to, click it once, target, and then find the spot, put it down, you can use an at cursor macro like this one here. And this macro is essentially going to place it down where you want it, where you have your cursor, so at your cursor. So I just drag that onto my bar there, and so let's say I want to put it on top of this walking guardian over there. I'm just going to go hit that button and automatically it tosses it where my cursor was. I don't have to do the little target thing. So that can help with saving some time, especially when you're in the middle of a raid fight and you're trying to get something out quickly. Target where you want it, just put your cursor there and hit your button. Another type of macro, I think it's really important, is your use macros. So you have your trinkets, and I'm not a big fan of on-use trinkets, but some of them are very powerful. And when you have those, I typically try to macro that to one of my, burst cooldowns. So if you have, for example, this blood spattered scale that is on a 2-minute cooldown, I've got it, to where whenever I hit Avenging Wrath, it'll come up. So Avenging Wrath typically will be, shortened as a prot pally. So oftentimes I'll get it more times. I'll get to use Avenging Wrath more, but every time it's available essentially and I'm hitting that button, I'm making sure I'm using my trinket as well. And I think that'll help, one, with, making sure people don't forget to use the macro or forget to use their trinkets, and then two is really optimizing, one, the amount of time you spend getting into that burst phase. The fewer buttons you have to hit, the more you can do. And two is really making sure that you're getting things done, as quickly and efficiently as possible. Think about the pull. You hit, your on use buttons, and that can essentially help you keep moving. Um, there are different other types, for example, at player. So this one here will always target me. So if I want to have a specific ability always target myself, I can use that. Another type of macro is to, if you have to cast an ability on an enemy, one of the more popular trinkets for casters is the Soul Letting Ruby. Well, you have to actually target a mob in order to use that. So this kind of macro will allow you to target the enemy, cast, whatever ability or trinket, and then if you really want to get fancy with it, you can add target last target like that. And if you were targeting, say, a friendly, it would revert back to that person. So let's say I'm a healer, healing the tank, and I wanted to use an ability to hit the mobs, the enemy, well, I will use something like that. Target the enemy, cast the ability, and then target last target, so it reverts back to the tank. So those are a few, little quick ones that are very efficient, and they can save you a lot of time on a lot of different things. So another thing is trying to make sure you have certain different abilities that you're using, or forgetting to use. If it helps you, you can put them in. Sometimes I use Light of the Martyr here on my Healbot target, and this allows me to cast my Divine Protection on myself while I'm doing that, because Light of the Martyr is actually going to cause me to, take away some of my health. So in a raid fight, that can cause me some problems. So I want to take reduced damage when I'm doing that. Cancel aura macros kind of helps a little bit for pallies, but you basically list this / cancel aura, blessing and protection, and then casting the blessing and protection. So what this allows me to do is use a bop to, say, clear a debuff or something of the sort while I'm tanking, but I don't want to keep bop on me because I'll lose all the aggro. So I hit it once and then immediately hit it again to get rid of the bop buff on me, and that will allow me to regain threat and keep moving, but clear off any really bad debuffs that I have on me. And the same applies for Divine Shield, cancel aura. So using macros, again, something that is really good, and these are just talking about just base macros that are in WoW. Now I also use more advanced macros, but I'm not going to get into that today. However, when I'm playing for my rotational abilities, I have a more complex set of macros, which are based off of click abilities, and an actual add-on called GSE that allows me to create more in-depth macros. And again, I'll focus on this on a later video if some people might benefit from it, but it allows me to put several abilities on there. But again, this is simply just talking about standard macros that you can make without any add-ons in WoW. As see here, I have my character specifics, and I use a lot of macros. So general macros here, I have different ones for the covenant abilities. So for example here, whenever I switch covenants, I just have one button down there and it automatically replaces whatever covenant I am. Same thing for the signature ability down here. It will always pick whatever that covenant's signature ability is. So just making sure that you can use macros to be very efficient. So another set of macros that you can use here, just a couple different ones real quick wanted to touch base on here, are cast sequence macros like this one here, and the other ones are mouse over macros. So the cast sequence, sometimes there are 2 or 3 abilities that you will always use together. Prime example here is with Kyrian Arcane Mage. You will always do your Touch of the Magi, Radiant Spark, and Arcane Power, or Rune of Power, depending on which one is up. You will always use them together. The rotation requires you to use those buffs together with the legendary. You just, in order to play it properly, you have to always use those abilities, always together in a line in succession. However, those abilities are off the global cooldown, so you will need to cast those abilities each button pressed on there. But again, they're always going to be used together, so you can put them all into one macro. And then in this particular case, it has my trinkets, and I'm going to do the setup of the rotation. So it will allow me to press that button essentially 3 times, once for Touch of the Magi, once for Radiant Spark, and once for Arcane Power, and use all three abilities for each time. You know, one button press does one ability, one button press does the second, one button press for the third, and it will use my trinket, my on-use trinket. If I have my Soul Letting Ruby equipped, it will use that as well. So I will press that button 3 times and it'll run through those abilities. So again, a very, very powerful way to set up some more complex rotations in a very quicker, more efficient way, instead of you having 3 separate keybinds that you have to run through there. Again, also allowing you to free up keybinds, have more space. And then the last ability, or the last macro rather, that I'll go over is a @mouse over. So let's say this mob has a buff that I can spell steal. I can just hover my mouse over it and press my button for my spell steal, which is down here. It's bound to one of my mouse clicks. So I hover over and I just press my keybind for it, and it will automatically spell steal that buff without me having to target it. I wouldn't have to be targeting that particular mob. Let's say I was targeting that one, but this one has the buff that I need to steal. I'm still going to be able to spell steal it from that one while I'm still targeting that one over there. I can still target this guy over here, mouse over, spell steal that debuff, or purge it, whatever the case may be, and continue targeting my current target. The next thing that I was going to go over on here was basically about moving in the raid, and this is one of the things that, holy crap, I have seen some bad stuff. And the main thing that I see is you get targeted with a circle, or somebody gets targeted with something, and they've got only a couple seconds to move out of it. Well, I've got a big red circle on me and I do this. Oh no. More than likely I am dead. You do not want to backpedal on things, and I'm not saying I don't backpedal sometimes when I'm doing things. What I am saying is that it should not be your reactive. It needs to be something that you have plenty of time. Maybe if you're tanking and backing some stuff up, very little things, but you have time to do them. Backpedaling should not be something that you do to react to abilities. You should either strafe or run in a direction, forward, back. Um, do not use arrows to turn around like that. You shouldn't be doing that to turn around. You basically want a keyboard turn, or a mouse turn. So that'll make you much more responsive, much more reactive to the abilities. So that is the main thing I wanted to touch on with movement, just making sure that you are doing those things that will allow you to get out and move quicker. Another small, well, I guess I shouldn't say small, but another big detail to moving would be in the actual movement itself. The whole ABCs of always be casting, well, if you're strafing left or strafing right, do you have an instant ability that you can hit? So if I target mobs, I can possibly be casting things while I'm moving. So doing stuff like that while you're moving, using your instance along the way, and then when you get planted, you can keep casting. And last thing that I wanted to touch on basically for the point of this episode is keybinds. And some people have some really in-depth keyboard or mouses that can handle more things, and that's great if you've gotten very familiar with it. But just in my general experience, you are going to be faster if you're able to play with both your mouse and your keybinds, your keyboard. If you're just relying on your mouse to handle your abilities, especially if you're a point and clicker like this to cast abilities, if you're doing that and you're moving, you're going to be slower. So as you can see here, I have my buttons, my keybinds set up for 1 through 6, and I barely ever use any of these further buttons, or these other buttons are more extra side buttons rather. But my main things are going to be 1 through 6. They're very, very close together, and the F keys that are right directly above 1 through 6, F1 through F6. So I have access to these buttons very, very quickly without moving my hand very far. So again, just wanted to get these videos together and try to get more out as we go, and I'll touch on some specific add-ons that are really, really helpful, giving some tips on how to set up some add-ons such as weak auras. I'll touch base on that GSE macro or add-on in a later video as well, and hopefully just given all these little small things that could help, that I know helped me along the way, can help move your rating experience and your playstyle just a little bit better in the right direction. Thanks everybody, and we'll catch you on the next video.